Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a revolutionary new framework that is literally changing everything we know about detecting pancreatic cancer. For decades, pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, or PDAC, has been this incredibly frustrating lethal challenge in medicine. But as you'll see, we are finally uncovering a new multi-omic architecture that shifts our entire strategy. We're moving away from just waiting around for a single loud alarm bell, and instead, we're learning how to catch a quiet, highly coordinated biological heist while it's actually happening.
Now, you might be wondering, why does the deadliest cancer always seem to hide in plain sight? Well, it's a question that has completely baffled researchers for years. The reality is, PDAC is an absolute master of disguise. It doesn't just passively sit there and grow, it actively constructs an elaborate defense system. The tumor basically evades early detection by perfectly mimicking conditions that doctors see every single day, and frankly, often just ignore. It literally uses our own body's background noise against us.
And the tragic result of that disguise is this number right here, a devastatingly low 5-year survival rate of less than 12%. This number exists primarily because, historically, the cancer is caught way too late. By the time a patient actually feels symptoms or a single biomarker finally crosses a clinical threshold, while the tumor has already established itself. That crucial window where surgical removal is a viable, curative option, it's long gone.
So here is our roadmap for how we actually solve this. We'll start with the silent killer's shield, move into the 4 arms of transformation, look at how we're cracking the circuit, identify the point of no return, and then finally wrap up with redefining early detection. Okay, Section 1, the silent killer's shield, unmasking the disguise.
For the longest time, we've struggled with this disease precisely because of the camouflage it uses. The old diagnostic paradigm was all about waiting for one single biomarker to cross a really loud diagnostic threshold. But the thing is, PDAC actively suppresses those single signals. The new paradigm? It completely flips the script. It focuses on detecting a coordinated 4-arm circuit of quiet, sub-threshold markers. You see, the tumor can easily hide one signal by keeping it within a normal clinical range, but it absolutely cannot suppress the massive coordinated effort it needs to survive. The coordination itself actually becomes the signal. This quote perfectly captures the tumor's incredibly sneaky strategy. The tumor does not need to be invisible. It needs only to resemble conditions the clinician has already decided to ignore. It uses host noise, things like chronic low-grade inflammation, metabolic syndrome, or new-onset diabetes, as a shield to hide its deadly progression. If your blood tests show a slight metabolic shift, your doctor might just tell you to watch your diet, right? Completely missing the fact that it's actually the very first phase of pancreatic cancer.
Section 2. 4 arms of transformation, the biological circuit.
To grow and spread, this master criminal is basically forced to run 4 distinct biological programs at the exact same time. The first arm is metabolic rewiring. The mutated cells undergo a major shift to what's known as Warburg metabolism. And this isn't optional for the cancer, it's an absolute necessity. To fuel its rapid growth, the tumor starts heavily consuming specific nutrients, particularly branched-chain amino acids, or BCAAs, and glutamine. This creates a systemic nutrient depletion in the bloodstream. It's the very first whisper of an issue, and it happens years before a tumor is ever visible.
Another massive piece of this puzzle is stromal shielding. This is wild. The cancer literally builds a fireproof wall around itself. It recruits specialized cells to deposit this dense, fibrotic matrix that acts like the ultimate nightclub bouncer. It physically collapses blood vessels, it blocks our immune cells from attacking, and it even traps the tumor's own biomarkers inside a vault. It makes traditional detection near impossible, simply because the very molecules we're trying to measure are locked away.
When we zoom out and look at this visual, we can see the entire multi-omic architecture. You've got the 4 arms that absolutely must be active. The tumor has to rewire its metabolism to feed itself, suppress the immune system so it doesn't get destroyed, build that stromal shield for physical protection, and finally launch an exosome program to send instructions to distant organs, prepping them for metastasis. If we can measure this entire circuit happening at once, we catch the cancer.
Moving on to Section 3, cracking the circuit, virtual spectral decomposition. Now, measuring a bunch of different things at once could easily lead to a ton of false alarms, right? So how do we actually catch this complex 4-arm program in action without getting fooled by everyday benign conditions? The answer is a really brilliant mathematical filter called dendritic gating. Think of this system like a master detective, meticulously checking its work by enforcing causal plausibility. If a test spots an elevated leaf marker downstream, say a protein called GDF15, but the upstream root marker, like depleted BCAAs, hasn't been triggered, the system just ignores it. It knows the causal chain is broken. This ensures that any alerts are truly caused by the tumor's roots, which virtually eliminates false positives.
Once we use that filter to cut through the noise, we look at the overall pattern. Look closely at the pre-PDAC target on the far right here. The framework evaluates the readiness of all four arms, and in true pre-pancreatic cancer, it forms this very specific descending envelope shape. The metabolic and immune arms fire the strongest, followed by the stromal, and finally the exosome arm. There's literally no benign condition, not pancreatitis, not diabetes, that produces this specific coordinated descending pattern across all four channels.
Section 4. The point of no return. The ticking clock.
All of this builds into an undeniable ticking clock for survival. This forearm circuit doesn't just flip on all at once like a light switch. It activates in a highly specific temporal sequence over a period of years. About 24 months before a conventional diagnosis, metabolic rewiring starts. At 18 months, immune suppression kicks in. At 12 months, that stromal shield is built. And finally, at 6 months, the exosomal niche preparation begins. Catching the cancer before this final step is quite literally the difference between life and death.
So the absolute most crucial point is right here at -6 months. This is when the exosome arm fires. The tumor starts packing these tiny little envelopes called exosomes with reprogramming instructions, and it mails them through the bloodstream straight to the liver. It's priming the liver, preparing it to receive metastatic seeds. Once this happens, the cancer has essentially crossed the point of no return. In fact, the data shows that this exosome arm is the independent predictor of patient death.
Which leads us to this incredibly profound realization, captured perfectly here. The architecture doesn't just find cancer earlier, it finds cancer before the cancer has decided to become incurable. If we can track this circuit and detect it at the 2 or 3 arm stage, way before those exosomes are deployed, we actually have a window to surgically remove the threat before it ever packs its bags to colonize the liver. That is huge. And finally, Section 5, redefining early detection, hiding in our blood. Honestly, this might be the most mind-blowing part of the entire framework. We don't actually need some crazy science fiction technology to start saving lives right now. You might think detecting a complex biological circuit requires completely newly invented biomarkers, right? But look at this list. Branched-chain amino acids, glutamine, tryptophan. These are the exact same standard analytes drawn during your routine clinical blood work at your annual physical. We already have the tools. We just needed the right math to read them together as a circuit.
And to make it even more robust, we can view this circuit through multiple lenses. As you see here, when we combine blood metabolomics to see the upstream roots, blood proteomics to spot the downstream leaves, and CT imaging to see the physical tissue changes, something amazing happens. Our false positive rate basically plummets to 0. Why? Because you have 3 completely independent medical modalities orthogonally confirming the exact same biological heist. It becomes mathematically impossible for it to just be a benign fluke. This framework completely shatters how we think about diagnostics. By taking a step back and looking at the coordinated circuit rather than waiting for one loud alarm to go off, we can catch the deadliest cancer while it's still curable. But, it also leaves us with a massive question. If these clues were already hiding in our routine blood work this entire time, how many other silent killers could we stop today if we just stopped looking for single alarms and finally started listening for the pattern?